Hi guys, welcome back to the Max Talks podcast. It's been a little bit of time, but we're back and I'm excited for this conversation. I'm going to be speaking to Tom Berry, who is the founder of the Rebuild community that focuses on injuries, pain, and helping others manage their journey through the rehab process and all that comes with it. A massive fan of what Tom's doing, what he's building, and others that are building similar communities. Obviously, you guys know about my story with my injuries, and I'm excited to talk to Tom today about his and the community and the mission that he wants to build out there. So, welcome, Tom. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, hi there. Thank you so much. That's really kind. Thank you.
No problem. I'd want to just get into a bit about you first. So, who are you, and what do you do, or what's the background between sort of the injuries and I suppose just general background would be great.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Tom. I'm 24 now. So the whole kind of best way to start this and just kind of describe where kind of rebuild came from and actually massively links into who I am. So I was a very keen rugby player. So I played rugby for a long time through the age groups. I actually used to live in Germany to the age of about 12 or 13. So I actually only started in like year
Wow.
seven or year eight. But I kind of fell in love with rugby straight away. The physical nature of it, the friendships that I made, the team. I've always loved team sports, and rugby just seemed to be the perfect fit. So I had an amazing time playing through school, through the old
Hmm.
Worcester Warriors Academy that I think is actually starting up again soon, but actually fell into administration, the whole club. That's a whole story,
Hmm.
whole story for another
Hmm.
time, well above my pay grade. But and then went to university and played, and I had an amazing time playing at the University of Bath. I met some amazing people, and I was lucky enough to play in this competition called Buck Super Rugby, which is basically that top level university
Yeah.
league and actually get a big blend of professional and non-professional players. So it's a very big stepping stone.
Hmm.
And after that, I traveled out to Australia to play, and I always wanted to have rugby as a tool to travel. I have to admit, I was always of the opinion I really wanted to travel with it because I knew the professional scene for a number of
Hmm.
reasons wasn't really what I necessarily wanted. I wanted to see as far as I could go naturally. I think I'd
Yeah.
be lying if I said otherwise. But
Hmm.
I always had this awareness that the nature of it, this the sheer relentlessness of physicality. I don't know whether that was what I wanted to do, so I wanted to travel and play.
Hmm.
And this is where kind of rebuild comes in. So about it's 14 months ago now, but I traveled out to Australia in February 2025 to pursue this. Signed my first professional contract with the club in Melbourne,
Hmm.
kind of buzzing off the walls, traveling halfway across the world to do what I loved, earn a little bit of money and meet some people. That's pretty the most amazing package.
Alive.
And yeah, exactly. And 3 weeks after arriving, I suffered a pretty horrific training accident and suffered a Lisfranc fracture. It's my right foot, which, for those who don't know, is pretty devastating.
Hmm.
There's different levels, obviously, and I'm a bit biased with this, but having had shoulder surgeries, concussions, knee issues, whatever, this is by far the worst. Essentially, a dislocation of a bone in your foot or displacement. I don't know what the exact medical science is, but
Hmm. Hmm.
pretty devastating injury. And
Hmm.
what happened was there's a long periods of misdiagnosis,
Hmm.
which I'm sure we can come on to at some point. But that I found it really hard. I think because people kept telling me, or I say it's a Lisfranc fracture. We didn't know it was
Hmm.
for about 5 months, and the pain was like nothing I'd ever experienced before.
Hmm.
Um, so I was in a different country, kind of by myself, and cutting a long story short, it was very hard. And I
Hmm.
think that once I got that diagnosis, it was easier. And coming back to the UK in September to have the surgery, I thought that
Hmm.
would be the kind of end of the chapter, but it's kind of only just beginning. As I've now had two surgeries today on my right foot, one to put a metal plate in
Hmm.
that didn't work, so we then had to take the metal plate out again back in February, and I'm basically
Wow.
hopefully in the next month or two having to have surgery again on my right foot to try a different method called a fusion this time, which has a higher success rate, but is a more,
Hmm.
definitive and more complex outcomes for your body as a whole
Yeah.
when you fuse bones together.
Hmm.
And I think where Reboot came from, it kind of began in November because I realized as I'm kind of sat in my old like childhood bedroom from where I grew up and did my GCSEs A levels that no one really talks about this. I felt like
Hmm.
that I'd grown up in environments where you're constantly told to do more and push harder. And look, I do think there's weight in that to a certain
Hmm.
degree. I think rugby, one of its biggest strengths is its resilience that it builds.
Hmm.
But a combination of being on by myself, not surrounded by a
Hmm.
team environment anymore, to suddenly And so I'm also seeing on social media an absolute wave of just rubbish, to use a better word, of like just people telling you to do more, constantly push harder. And I
Hmm.
just felt like this was the last thing I wanted to see. Even though I'd grown up in that environment, I'm sure we'll come on to that. I just, for whatever this moment, I couldn't deal with it, and I just suddenly had this realization that, well, we always talk about the start and the end and the comeback, but
Hmm.
we never talk about the absolute months, if not years, for some people, of what happens in the middle. So
Hmm.
that's kind of where Rebuild came from. And thank you very much for saying that about the community earlier. It really means a lot, that kind of building that community of athletes, of injured athletes that all gone through similar experiences, even though they might be drastically different
Hmm.
situations or reasons. I've
Hmm.
been pretty blown away by just how similar a lot of our themes are. So yeah, that's a bit about me and then kind of where Rebuild came from.
Yeah, cool. I mean, um, you know, firstly, it'd be interesting to probably dive into sort of that realization and sort of how that came about. I guess, you spend when you're injured a lot of time by yourself. And naturally, there's only so much time you can do nothing. So you easily gravitate towards, social media or YouTube or any other sort of platform. So I'd be interested in who or what maybe helped with that realization of like this can't be the only way, because I guess that's a big realization for me as well. And I'm a similar age to you, so I grew up in a period of like just push harder, you David Goggins type people of like just keep pushing forward no matter what. But you're right, there's a limit, and I guess, yeah, what was the thing that sort of pushed you towards more of a, I don't know, pulling back a little bit rather than just pushing, and
Yeah.
realizing that it's not the only way forward.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned David Goggins because that was someone that I remember growing up, was it growing up, in the last like 2, 3 years watching. I remember that
Mm,
as part, I mean, I'm sure we both know this, that it was funny. People, we liked it, and we liked it because it resonated with us. The idea that,
mm,
yeah, I do want to push more. I do want to do lift heavier weights, run quicker
mm,
times. I think that's completely reasonable. The,
mm,
the the limit is actually a really good word, and that came when, especially when I came back to England, and I remember sitting on my bed, again, my foot up in the air.
mm,
I had the knowledge that I knew the foot, there's a chance the surgery might not work, and unfortunately, that is what happened. But again, like
mm,
there's lots of ifs and buts.
mm,
I
mm,
remember trying to go downstairs to like the little gym, which is like just a little room with some mats and like a mat and a few weights that I bought off eBay. Like it's
mm.
very like, not a gym, but some exercises, right?
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there being like, what am I doing? Like my foot was in a cut, like not quite a cast at this point, but moon boot, and like I
Yeah.
couldn't have it down for too long because the
Yeah.
the blood would rush in. I was trying to do these chest press exercises when my shoulders, I've already like had a surgery on
Mm,
both shoulders, so
mm,
I understand what injury means, and so I already have to manage that. And they weren't handling the exercise as well for whatever reason. I kept trying to push harder,
mm,
and I just had this realization. I was like, what am I doing? As I
mm,
was realization suddenly that, hang on, I understand the rehab process. I've done it many times before. And there was
mm,
something about this was different. And it was the fact that I genuinely had to stop. Like I
mm,
genuinely had to, I physically couldn't do the things that I wanted to do. Because I
mm.
mentioned my shoulders before. Even despite my shoulders, I could be back in the gym doing leg extensions.
Yeah.
I mean, for people with shoulder issues, generally one of the key things is obviously get it out of the
Mm,
sling ASAP. We want to get
mm,
movement in as soon as possible.
mm.
So I was actually, my life didn't look that different
Yeah.
after my shoulder dislocation and my labral repair, that even though I wasn't playing rugby, a
Mm,
big part of my identity, my life didn't look that different. Now with the
mm,
foot and just the severity of the injury and the nature of the times and stuff, everything changed. And then that
mm,
realization with trying to go downstairs, I was like, what am I doing? Like
mm,
this fact that
mm,
I was trying so hard to push through because maybe I'd seen an Instagram reel, maybe I'd seen a TikTok of someone in a similar, I say similar position, I didn't know, but a
yeah.
moon boot, visually similar,
Yeah.
and they were doing a single leg ergo, or they were doing
Mm,
seated ski erg.
yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I've got to do that. But
Mm,
then as soon as I tried to do that, it just made me feel worse about my own recovery because I couldn't do it.
mm,
And the fact that I felt bad that I couldn't do it. And it's
yeah.
only and I almost, yeah, exactly. I almost felt this. I looked online and I genuinely just had this thought, well, if no one else is going to do it, I'll do it. Because I just felt like there's this huge gap in the what people genuinely think, so what people think injury is,
Hmm.
and then the genuine reality of what it actually is. Because I think
Hmm.
social media, I'm sure we'll come on to, but
Hmm.
has a horrible way of framing things in a way that the exceptional, the top 1% of things is becoming the expected. And you're like, well, that's not true. Or
Hmm.
like ACL recoveries in 200 days. And you're like, that's not normal. There's
Hmm.
level and look, if you can do that, brilliant. But
Hmm.
if you can't, you shouldn't feel like you're wrong for not being able to do that. And that's kind of where that limit came from.
Yeah, I think there's a big misconception with anything, with any goal, like it's totally dependent on the individual and how that rehab process, how that journey looks for you might look completely different for me. And I think we're all blinded by just what we see on social media of these quick results, quick progressions, or you know, it's in a way it's our own fault for falling into that comparison trap of seeing other people that we think we should be like. So I suppose one of the biggest things is focusing on what you need um in that moment and focusing on that and being better every day and comparing yourself to yourself rather than to others, I suppose. um
Yeah,
so
just on that, sorry, can I just
go on.
interrupt? Just on that,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I think it actually strikes at the heart of what A, rebuild is all about, but B,
Hmm.
the why behind it and the issue of social media. Because you mentioned
Hmm.
that as much as I'm talking about injuries here, and we're talking about recovery. This can
Hmm.
apply to anything.
Of
Like, I
course
mean,
it can, yeah.
I've read articles. I mean, I've had a lot of time to read and do things when I've been injured. It's like, you know, everything from the dating world to the
Hmm.
way we see friendships to the
Hmm.
make money quick, and that everyone thinks everyone has to be an influencer now.
Hmm.
And you're like, society nowadays is moving at 100 miles an hour. This
Hmm.
idea that
Hmm.
slowing down is a weakness, and it shouldn't be. Now, I can only speak from the lens of injury recovery,
Yeah.
but that comparison, I mean, it's brutal. I mean,
It's
all of
it's
my feed,
you know yeah,
it's
it's
awful.
it's the same with what I do as a coach. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a massive boom during COVID of these online coaches coming about, or just people moving over to the online space, which is completely understandable. But then you see the lifestyle of some of these coaches, whether it's living in Dubai, Bali, and
yeah,
you
exactly.
compare, or at least a lot of people do. um and that's coming back round through speaking to people that I know in the industry. um you can see sort of changes in that. People are starting going back to
Yeah,
in-person training, having more of a connection with people rather than just giving them a training program to do. Because ultimately, with the rise of AI, I know this as a coach, but like a lot of what you do, whether it's programming or admin based stuff, will be taken over for sure. So I guess the thing that we still have is our knowledge and our wisdom and judgment of things through experience and obviously what we've learned, whether it's through articles or research. So I guess you know linking it back sort of to injury, I think there's always going to be a space for community and supporting other people, person to person, rather than just seeing videos online. There's always going to be that human connection, which is super, super important, which is why what you've built is doing so well so far. So massive well done for spotting the opportunity. And I guess just on that point of community, I think one of the biggest things right now, or maybe was recently, is like the run clubs. A lot of
yes,
gyms, a lot of gyms decided to open a run club because then it interacts with the community, which is such a good thing because it does get people out of the house and into some sort of fitness, which is great. But again, there's always that comparison. So you've got to be careful when you're in sort of a susceptible position. Again, applying it to let's say making money. It's like if you're desperate to make money, it's like you'll get snapped up by these make
yeah.
money quick schemes. And you and me both know that the true way to make money and to be successful in any goal is to play the long game and do things properly. Otherwise, you're just going to get caught out, or you're gonna fall back or not make progress. So it's super interesting how it links to
Mm.
everything. And that's what I've learned through my own injuries and working with people with injuries. It's a massive sort of realization, and it can change people's lives. I think one of my the physio clinic that I go to for my injuries. One of the things that they say, and it might have been said before, but and I probably you've heard it, but every injury is an opportunity, and that's not necessarily another physical opportunity, but
Mm.
it could be something that's changing within your life. So yeah, super interesting.
I think just
So
on that, there's this.
go ahead.
Sorry, again.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
there's kind of two things there that I found really interesting, and
Hmm.
I'll touch on the opportunity in a second. But
Yeah.
you're right that with AI and the way I see it nowadays is that everyone is an expert at everything. It's
Hmm.
like the idea that if I absolutely wanted to, I'm sure, well, we figure out a way, but I could write a dissertation on something using
Hmm.
AI.
Hmm.
And the way it phrase it in terms of injuries and recovery is that it's like everyone can prescribe a program. It's like everyone can tell you, like you say, about these running programs, or like, and I've seen all the issues with runner and in the news in the last few weeks.
Hmm.
Like the human experience is so important, and then linking it out to that community aspect, which is that I've been pretty blown away by just how many people I've come into contact with that I
Hmm.
know has helped my journey. Because as much as it's a two, like much as they've messaged me, I also am delighted to message them,
Hmm.
because all of a sudden you're finding people in similar situations, and I think it's definitely something that AI will never be able to take away. And I think that, and it's so funny to hear you say this actually, because I've thought this for a while. Again, this is actually a little bit separate from injury, but
Hmm.
about the going back to in person stuff. I think so much of it's so important nowadays. I think there's been such a heavy shift towards online and quick and
Yeah.
speed,
Yeah.
and I've scaled a million businesses when no you haven't. All you've done is I don't know, like an
Yeah.
Instagram. I don't know, something like that,
Yeah,
something
or
ridiculous.
just
That
or used AI to run it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like not
exactly. So
yeah.
we're not we're there exactly, and I think I mean look, they're never going to go anywhere, but I think that's so interesting. There is this shift back towards this human interaction, and I think that
Mm,
on that sense of injuries and opportunity, that one really fascinates me because I think there's so many ways that it can be interpreted. I think it's so important because I know that when I was on my bed there, and again, foot looking black and blue,
mhm,
I knew that like as much as I was in a negative situation, yes, there was a chance to turn into a positive situation. And for me,
mhm,
it was, well, what are the steps I can take to do that? Because I
mhm.
know that I can't just simply wake up one day and go, right, happy days, this is a positive now. Because I
Yeah.
knew that I kind of realized there was actually a lot of steps in between
Mhm,
the sense of acceptance, where establishing control during recovery, almost
mhm,
allowing facts to overcome that anxiety. And
mhm,
so I think it's so important, but you're completely right. The injury is an opportunity. And I think that once I know in my situation, I've allowed myself to accept what is going on.
mhm,
That's when I'm able to recognize it as an opportunity rather
mhm,
than thinking next day, oh, I'll be fine, I'll do this tomorrow. When in actual
mhm.
fact, there's some building blocks I need to establish first.
For sure, for sure. I think, it's funny because you only come to these realizations once you've been through something, a few times. For example, you've had countless injuries. Um, and I'm the same with my knee. I suppose it's only come to us, after years of just being exposed to the same thoughts, feelings. So, I guess the challenge is probably helping people that are, I mean, for me in particular, but helping people that have either, the first time injury, and helping them understand it better rather than being in the mindset of, I've got to return back to my sport as soon as possible or back to the things that I were doing because, that's what's important. But switching it and rather saying, use that time that you have, off your feet, for example, like you was to, do other things, learn something, read a book or, anything. So that's the opportunity in itself. So it's yeah, really interesting topic that. Um, so I guess probably it leads nicely on to sort of what your mission is with Rebuild. And I know you've touched on it a little bit, but yeah, if you go into what you think or what you feel the mission is behind Rebuild, and what you hope for it maybe in the next, or the foreseeable future, let's say.
No, thanks for asking that. Yeah, I think it's a really good question and one I was actually asking myself earlier. But the why is quite clear for me. The
Hmm.
why is basically to help athletes feel less alone during that recovery journey. Because
Yeah.
as much as I can go back and forth about acceptance, control, and grief and all these things, ultimately we feel isolated. I think that's the key word that comes up, and I know that more than anything because I've lived it. And I think that
Hmm.
from speaking to these people online, I've been very, very lucky in person online to meet some amazing people. The
Yeah.
themes that come up the most is the isolation and the loneliness, because
Hmm.
ultimately injuries strike at so much more than just the physical aspect. I mean,
Hmm.
they target everything from your
Hmm.
ability to go outside, your
Hmm.
relationships, your
Hmm.
friendships.
Hmm.
Because for me, rugby meant everything to me. Now, I
Hmm.
haven't played rugby in 14 months. So, and I will never play again. I mean, I've
Hmm.
had to make that decision, and that
Hmm.
alone is a form of grief, let alone
Yeah.
all of the bits that go in between it in terms of the independence loss
Yeah.
and all these kind of things. So that's the why. The why is very very clear. The fun first and foremost is to help athletes feel less alone, and then just
Yeah.
building on that community,
Yeah.
and that feeds naturally into the kind of first goal. And it's a community that ultimately what I want to be is a complete contrast to what these influencers say on social media. I mean, I'm not really afraid to call kind of things as it is as I see it, because
Yeah.
whatever the intention behind the post might be, if there's people out there with hundreds and thousands of followers,
Hmm.
let's say they've got a sorry, I'm deviating a little bit from the question you asked, but this I saw an influencer the other week develop a stress fracture, and obviously stress fractures are quite epidemic, it would seem, in
Yeah.
the running community. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
there's some of the things we mentioned earlier may well be involved in that.
Hmm.
But this influence in particular, I think they ran every day for a long period of time and developed a stress fracture.
Hmm.
But rather than actually explain what happened,
Hmm.
they actually just, well, in my opinion, just dodged the question. So they
Hmm.
had a stress fracture, and a few weeks later, they posted a post saying, "Oh, I spoke to this X, Y, and Z physio, something, something about why it happened." And they
Hmm.
mentioned, I think they mentioned three things, and not once did they mention overtraining. And I just sat there, and although it was a very niche part of the whole injury journey, like I'm not saying this applies to every injury ever, but I sat there and I was like, how can you say that with so much, with such a ridiculously big audience who would almost certainly use you as inspiration
Yeah.
behind their
Yeah.
training,
Yeah.
behind their mindset and everything.
Hmm.
So you're sitting there telling me that your stress fracture, so let me say that again, stress fracture had nothing to do with the amount you were training. Because in
Hmm.
my opinion, not as an expert here, I don't think that's true. And as I spotted one, I started seeing a few more. And I just found that, hang on, there's so many influencers out there who see either, so he see injuries might be as a trend. They might see
Yeah.
injuries as something cool. I've seen things out there saying, oh, it's like everyone's getting injured online. And like, look,
Mm.
as much as I know you might be joking,
Mm.
so many of us, injuries aren't a joke. They change
Hmm.
our lives. And for some
Mm.
people, this it can be years down the line. They're still
Hmm.
affected by this.
Yeah.
So to go bring it back around to the question you asked, to make athletes feel less alone, but ultimately to provide a contrast and a safe space to have these honest conversations where no
Mm.
one's going to feel judged for feeling like they need to slow down, or no one's going to feel like they're doing something
Hmm.
wrong because they're further behind in a rehab process. And that
Hmm.
I want that to exist. And to be honest, I do want it to exist clearly as a comparison
Hmm.
to what the social media influencers are saying, which in my
Hmm.
opinion, not all of them, and I know there's nuances behind these things, and I understand that,
Yeah.
but I think it can be very shallow and very thematically, like we said earlier, quick, 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 no real depth
Yeah.
to it. So,
Yeah.
and then in terms of how it's moving forward, it's a really good question. I think I'm still quite new to all the social media business and side of things, and I'm sure probably the same for you. I don't like the idea
Hmm.
that post on social media is strange. To be completely honest, it's a strange process. I think I just hope it's keep growing. I think more than anything, if I can just help, and I've had this thought before, if I can just help one more person feel slightly
Hmm.
less alone during their recovery journey, then that's worth more than any amount of money could give for the
Yeah.
account. Like it's one of
Yeah.
those things where I just it's so much of it is about the spine is obviously my journey, but
Hmm.
from that it's kind of grown into this wider space. Just have people have honest discussions about things. So
Yeah.
the trajectory, it's a good question. Yeah, honestly, I'm thinking about it in real time as we're, as we're going on about it. So yeah, just keep doing what I'm doing. I guess would help
For
building
sure.
this
Yeah.
community, and then hopefully one day I'd love to do some like in-person events with people. Or
Yeah.
I've started actually going and presenting to schools and
Yeah.
universities, and particularly that young age group of 12 to 18, let's say,
Hmm.
because they're an age group I really feel sorry for, to be honest, with the world of social media, because when we've grown up, Instagram used
Hmm.
to be photos, hence why
Yeah.
there's a camera on the app.
Yeah.
Like that is literally what Instagram used to be, but now it's turned into this reels, and it's so addictive. And let alone
Yeah.
the fact if you like one injury thing, your feed is just full of the
Hmm.
same content. And that kind of leads back into what I was saying earlier about the influencers versus the reality of injury. So
Yeah, for sure.
combination of all those things.
I think the big takeaway with that is within, within your mission is probably just the honesty, and being honest, about your story first and foremost, which is why it's done so well so far. But giving people the opportunity to be honest to themselves, because I think it comes back to probably your decision on stopping to play rugby, like being honest with that yourself. Oh mate, that must be one of the hardest decisions to make, especially being young.
Mm.
And I think that's why it's so hard when you're young and you do get injured, because who wants to be seen as that person that's that kid that stopped playing rugby. And especially if you're good at a sport, let's say, like you were, or you are, I suppose. So yeah, massive opportunity for people to be honest, and just I say socialize with other people, because at the end of the day, like you said, you're spending a lot of time by yourself. So a massive part of
Yeah.
it is bringing people back together, which you know I probably didn't have as much, maybe you as well.
Yeah.
There was definitely less of that. Probably mostly just through physiotherapy. That's where you got a bit of like
Mm.
socializing. And obviously you can, if you can still do stuff like when you had your shoulder injuries, I'm sure you still, was able to be with the team at times. So, but
Well,
yeah,
just on
something
that,
that,
sorry,
go on, go
sorry,
ahead.
sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right.
Just on that, you hit the nail on the head. It's
Mhm.
that another key part of it is that I wanted to create a space that I wish I'd had.
Yeah.
It's that like I wanted to create somewhere a platform or just at least a conversation, even if it's as small as someone commenting,
Mm,
that
mhm,
to know that they've been seen and recognized. Is that
mhm.
like because I think in Australia, particularly those first few weeks and months when I had no diagnosis, was on my own,
Oh,
and you
yeah.
kind of mentioned the rugby, and to be honest, I was at the peak of my powers.
Mm,
Yes, I'd had a major shoulder reconstruction, well, but like whatever the phrase is, labral at university.
yeah.
My fourth year, and I'd gone from like kind of co-captain in the Bath uni team to
Mhm.
suddenly not playing at all. I was feeling really confident because I built myself up again, go out to Australia, and then bang, the second one kind of within quite a short succession hit. And when you're away from your support network, I just, because of the way Instagram is, it can be accessible across the world. I really just wanted to be somewhere that I wish that I'd had before.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I like to phrase it that I'm not a physio, I'm not a psychologist, I'm
Mhm.
not a professional sportsman, but what I am is someone who's very much been in the trenches.
Mhm.
Most parts of injuries, I'd like to think I
Mhm.
have some understanding of that thematically. And
Yeah.
I think just quickly on something else you said there about you were an athlete and you are, or you were very good and you are, that strikes the absolute heart of what exactly. You're exactly right to say both things because it's a sense of identity. Because you're right,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's the point. I think that's so important about this sense of acceptance and control that for so long, and it's what comes back to this idea that the version of me that was going downstairs and really wanted to hit the gym when I definitely should not have been. I still I have to. The more I can accept what's going on, the more I can accept the shift from okay, yes, I'm not playing rugby anymore, but I'm so much more than that. I think to
Mhm.
allow myself the space in my brain to go, you know what? I'm not defined by my sport. There is so much more to this, to me, than rugby. And I've always been very firm about that throughout my life
Yeah.
anyway. I've always like, when people ask you the question, oh, you just play rugby. Like, no, no, no. There's like, what are you on about? And you kind of laugh it off. But then when you're actually put into the kind of, into the fire and you go, okay, no, genuinely, this is gone. Like this full stop. Like, of
Yeah.
course, in theory, I could play again, but
Yeah.
I think that's
There
kind
w-
of its own discussion, but I,
Yeah.
I I won't be just for the sheer risk of re-injury or
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
amazing, isn't it, when we are put in that position to go, okay,
Mm.
now what do we do?
Mhm.
It's really hard, and I don't think no amount of discussion, to be honest, can ever really prepare you for that. And I think
I
that is
th
something that, unfortunately, like it's a horrible, horrible part of injuries,
Mhm.
the fact that and it is a sense of grief, it is a sense
Mm.
of loss because
Mhm.
ultimately you've lost something. But what
Mhm.
someone described to me is I run a little mini podcast alongside this,
Yeah.
called The Long Road Back. And
Yeah.
there's a girl there called Gemma who does this movement for Parkinson's. And
Hmm.
she told me about this sense of like grief and this idea that if you have your hand in a fist and like you have it in an image that you're opening up and dropping something, you're
Hmm.
losing a part of yourself. So on the one
Hmm.
hand, it's, oh, I've got my rugby here and I've lost it. But she
Hmm.
said if you can imagine it, face up, you're like, okay, my palm's facing upwards, so the rugby's still there. The athlete's
Hmm.
still there. I'm still an athlete, even though I can't. I'm still struggling to walk at the moment. I'm still an athlete. That doesn't mean it's gone
Hmm.
anywhere.
Hmm.
It's just giving it space for more things to grow there. And that
Hmm.
kind of phrase and analogy really stuck with me.
Hmm.
That it's been think about all the things we lose with injury. That the
Hmm.
more we can, because look, it's not an overnight process, but the more we
Hmm.
can imagine ourselves and our journey as like a thing facing upwards, that okay, as much as I'm haven't got something right now, I'm giving space for something else to grow there. So I think
Hmm.
that's such an important part of it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, there's so much we could go into with that. I think just quickly before we move on, I'd say like um, one one of the things that um, happens to people post injury is, I suppose, the loss of confidence that then is, a knock-on effect to other parts of their life. I mean,
Yeah.
think about having an injury and then going back to play the sport. Obviously, you're going to have a loss of confidence. That's obvious, but probably the thing that people don't see from the outside is a loss of confidence in other areas, whether it's
Yeah.
socially, psychologically, emotionally. You know, I think especially as a young person, especially been injured, you lose confidence. Whether it could be schoolwork or anything that you're doing at that time, it massively affects it too. So I think that's probably important to know. So I think the analogy is great. I think it's giving people again the opportunity to be like, well, it's not all that I am. There's so much more. And a
Mm.
lot of what I thought about when I was decided on playing rugby or not was like, okay, well, what would I do if I you
Yeah.
know if I retired from rugby? For example, what would I be doing? Most players would retire, before they're 40, for example. So what are you going to be doing with your life after that? I suppose a lot of people still link it to rugby, but so many people go into other things that they're interested in. So it's like, well, having a think about, okay, well, what am I actually interested in outside of rugby? It
Mm.
takes time, of course, but it's super important. And I guess for young people, again, that's probably one of the hardest things. Like you ask a young person, what
Absolutely.
do they want to do with their life? Yeah,
Mm.
they'll say they want to play rugby or football, or it'll be a quick answer that usually is borrowed or copied from, their friends or, somebody
Yeah.
who else is in the class. So I suppose, I mean, a big one for people leaving school is like, well, do I go to university or
Mm.
do I go into an apprenticeship? And more now than ever, I'm finding that, younger people are deciding to, either get a job, do an apprenticeship rather than follow the standard path of school, college, sixth form, university. So I think, and again, that gives, I'm not saying university is bad, because it does give people time to probably think more. But I think it's probably an easy path for a lot of people. Which again, post university, you
Mm.
look at the debt that you're in, and you're like, well, did I actually want to do that? That's the question. So I think that's the opportunity that I had anyway, was like, getting injured around 15, 16 years old. It was like, and then injuring again. So it was like, well, what would I actually do after rugby? What do I enjoy doing? So that gave me an opportunity to look into, other areas of my life that I would be interested in. And to be honest, a lot of it was just like I'm interested in being better, whether that was, like I said, reading, learning something. So I guess if you don't know what you want, that's probably the best thing as a young person, is just trying to be better than you were, whatever aspect of your life, and you will
Mm.
move forward. And then once you have a better understanding of who you are and what you enjoy, then that's when you can maybe start deciding on whether it's career or anything else.
Well, I think that
Um,
can you hear me? Okay, sorry, I think I cut out briefly for a second.
yeah, all good, all good.
Awesome. So I think that injuries have a really funny way of redefining and re making you reevaluate everything you thought about the world.
Hmm.
And I genuinely believe that because I think when you're put in a position where you literally have to start from the ground up, whatever the severity, and obviously this is naturally increased the longer it
Hmm.
goes on, particularly people suffer with chronic pain or
Hmm.
I know it's
Hmm.
long term or severe acute pain.
Hmm.
It has a really funny way of making you shift your perspective. So I'll openly say before my injuries happened, particularly when I was out in Australia at the very beginning, I was oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna make this amount of money, I'm gonna do this straight away, I'm gonna tick off these things. But now I've
Hmm.
had to go through this injury journey. I've gone, well, hang on a minute, let's just slow down. What do I want? What are my priorities? My health.
Hmm.
But then
Hmm.
nothing comes in the way of that.
Hmm.
And I genuinely think that it sounds stupid to say, but injuries really do redefine your perspective on things.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm speaking through the lens of injury recovery here, I'm very aware this can happen through multitude of other facets, whether it's grief or whether it's events or certain things that happen. But strictly through this lens of injury recovery, that when you lose so much and you're really stripped down to the absolute basics of needing help showering and quite literally confined to your bedroom sometimes. I mean, I stayed in my bedroom, I think it was 4 days in a row. I stayed like without going downstairs or around the house
Yeah.
simply because
Yeah.
I couldn't. And every
Hmm.
time I got up and the blood rushed into my foot, I was in agony. So I literally had
Hmm.
to stay in my foot at about 45 degrees. So I just think you're so correct in that injuries and these things and recovery and going through especially I'll say complex or long or whatever the
Yeah.
right word is, but
Yeah.
it really does reshape your perspective on things. And I think there's so much power in that I'm hoping one day that I will be happy that I've gone through this. I think right now,
Hmm.
when I'm in the middle of it, it is very
Hmm.
hard.
Hmm.
But I also know that, listen to my own advice, that
Hmm.
the more I can think and be kind to myself in this time here, and, if I'm going to compare upwards and allow myself to feel those things of acceptance and whatever, that hopefully when this is all said and done, however that looks like, and that's an important caveat that it doesn't mean playing rugby again. It can mean any number of things, and there's any number of
Hmm.
the sense of fulfillment can take a lot of different facets. And I think that's really important that
Hmm.
not so it doesn't just depend on running 10K means I'm better when
Yeah.
that's not the case because I don't know if I'll ever run again.
Hmm.
But it might be something like feeling happy and feeling able to feel free in my ability to walk and be able to do normal things again. That might be
Yeah.
what success looks like. And I think the
Hmm.
more I'm trying less and less to attach success and recovery to a specific goal,
Hmm.
because I think ultimately that just means that when the bad days come along, I feel that much further away from the goal.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Again, just on that quickly, um, there was this piece by a psychologist, sports psychologist, Chris Bodman, talking about they're actually the most recent London Marathon, and he was describing a graph from previous marathons. I think it was over 3 million people that were in this sort of study, and it shows that lots of people will get to aim in their head at the start for a set time, and what it shows is there's always peaks in this sort of graph of 3 hours, 3:30, 4 hours, rather than just been a nice upward sort of trajectory.
Mm,
There's always these peaks at these times, and I suppose that relates to again that specific goal, and those people that tended to get to halfway through the marathon and think, well, I'm not going to make that goal, would then often lose motivation and then they would just drop off
mm.
massively. So I guess it's
For
similar
sure.
in the way
Yeah, yeah.
of rehab and setting your expectations and maybe just going out with the mindset of let me just enjoy the marathon. I'm going to do my
100%.
best, of course, but rather than aiming for that target and working yourself up to have this pressure, just have the mindset of I'm going to enjoy this and take it all in. So I think it's interesting because ultimately those people that didn't achieve the target they set out to, they probably didn't have a good time in the marathon. They probably didn't enjoy
Exactly.
it. It probably was probably quite enduring and torturous in the end. So
It's almost like
um,
allowing the small things to be small things. It's like allowing
for
them to be
sure,
what they are. It's like the
yeah.
more I know for a fact that, I mean, as I said, my recovery's gone on for 14 months now and
Hmm.
counting. So it's like, well, if I had this goal, and I actually did initially. I remember this quite funny that I thought about trying high rocks when I
Mhm.
was better, and who knows if I don't know if I'll ever be able to, given the nature of some of the movements. But anyway,
Yep. Yep.
I wanted to aim for this one in May. Now it's currently May, and I can't even walk properly yet. So I
Mm.
know that if I right now was
Hmm.
tying my sense of self and fulfillment, whatever,
Hmm.
to that one
Yeah.
race,
Yeah.
I would be feeling terrible. But
Yeah.
as it happens, because I've gone on this journey, I've realized no, okay, we're not going to do that. If I do ever get to the point where I run a marathon or half marathon, I don't really even
Then
know if that is possible.
yeah.
But let's say, for argument's sake, it is.
Yeah.
There's no way I will be sitting here going, I need to hit a 4 hour time or three and
Yeah.
a half hour.
Yeah.
It will be the finishing will be the achievement. And you know what?
Hmm.
Even if I didn't finish, I would be
Hmm.
so proud that I even managed to make it on the start line that it
Yeah.
doesn't matter anymore. And I think it
Hmm.
rightly comes back to that sense of comparison, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
everyone's obsessed. I mean, how many people really here and maybe listening or whatever know people that can you do a run without putting it on Strava anymore? Can
Mhm.
can can we can people do these High Rocks events? I know it's a joke that's thrown at High Rocks, or I know it's like doing these marathon stuff without publicizing it. I'm sure
Mhm.
that I know there's so many people out there that don't think like that. However, I
Mhm.
do think the theme or the trope suggestion that we feel like we have to put our times, we have to do more, we only show the best bits of ourselves.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think in that
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
social media, it's that, and it's like we mentioned earlier, that people are coming back from ACLs in 200 days. I mean, I don't know, like what's that, 5 months, however long that is, 6 months. And you're
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
people post it because it's good and it's popular, but people don't post, the harder stuff when
Hmm.
recovery takes 2 years rather than 6 months.
Yeah.
And I think there's a real nuance there because I think for the vast majority of the population, and there's no weakness in this, it's just a fact,
Hmm.
won't run a marathon in X amount
Hmm.
of time or get back from
Hmm.
injury in X amount of time. So it's just
Hmm.
learning that it's okay to be in that demographic.
For sure. For sure. Cool. Okay. Let's see. I know we touched on a little bit. You mentioned about chronic pain, and I guess that's a massive topic in itself. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on helping people manage those types of problems. Chronic pain, long-standing injuries where, like yourself and like I've been through, how you see is a good
Yeah.
strategy for managing those. And, I suppose it links to the community again, because that's probably one of the main ones, having other people to
Yeah,
at
for
least
sure.
speak to and resonate with. But, what have you found yourself works for helping with those
It's a
sort of
great
longer
question. Yeah, it's a great
side?
question. I think, as in, I will caveat this again by saying, I'm not a physio, but I'm not a
Mm.
psychologist. But I don't say that in a negative. I'm saying that in
Yeah.
a so I know how it feels. I
Yeah.
really get it. And I think in terms of chronic pain, I actually, funny, alongside my Lisfranc fracture,
Mhm.
and this is its own story in itself. So for the short story version is that because of the compensation and weight and the issues walking in my gait and things like
Yeah.
that, I've actually
Yeah.
developed quite serious nerve damage in my other foot, which has been
Wow.
relentless to say the least.
Yeah.
And I think if
Yeah.
I had a magic wand, the irony is that I wouldn't fix my Lisfranc foot. I'd take the nerve pain away. And I
Wow.
think for the people kind of going through chronic pain, that long-term
Mm.
pain,
Mhm.
I remember hearing about these things, going, oh, it can't be that bad. I'm like, oh no, I get it. It is. And I think it's the fact that it doesn't leave you. The fact that it's around 24/7, 365 days a year. The fact that,
Mm.
I can go to the coffee shop or meet up with friends or, even doing something as relaxing as watching television, that the pain is still there.
Mhm.
And that's why I think chronic pain is actually very underrepresented or not talked about enough kind of area of pain and injuries that and they merge together with long-term pain, long-term injuries as well. I think they're
Yeah.
very similar thematically. That
Yeah.
I think the main thing is genuinely just being seen and recognized. I genuinely think that because for a long time your body is ultimately in fight or flight, particularly
Mm.
when you're in pain a lot of the time, lots of the day.
Mhm.
That you're genuinely in fight or flight a lot of the day. And that's not through
Mhm.
choice. It's just through the fact that there is, whether it's shoulder pain or knee pain, that if it stays with you all the time, it can be so hard to actually exist day to day with that.
Yeah.
Because anytime you do something, you're constantly thinking about the pain, understandably.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing genuinely I found, and from speaking to people, is the sense of recognition. And sometimes all it takes is someone to go, God, that must be so hard for you, and it
Mm.
makes the world of difference. Just
Mhm.
having someone recognize that, okay, you're in pain. Because when you break your arm, you've got a cast.
Hmm.
Or when you do your shoulder, you got a sling.
Yeah, yeah,
When
you
you're
can
in
see it.
pain that goes on for a long time, whether it's chronic pain or long-term issues with knees or shoulder kind of thing, that people forget. And that's
Hmm.
not a criticism of them. It's
Hmm.
they're not intentionally forgetting about it because life goes on. But the key difference for you is life is going on with the pain.
Yeah.
And especially when it feels like there's no end goal in sight, it can be so hard. And the main message I had is like trying to learn to live in the spaces
Hmm.
between moments. And it sounds quite strange, but like allowing yourself to feel life and joy in these things despite the pain,
Hmm.
because I think there's a lot of and look, there's a lot of power in that, but it's hard. And goodness me,
Hmm.
it's hard. Because
Hmm.
especially when the pain can be overwhelming or you've lost your ability to do something for such a long time, that
Yeah.
sense of identity fulfillment, it can be so hard. It's almost like a barrier that stops you from
Hmm.
getting there.
Hmm.
And I know I felt at my best
Hmm.
when I've allowed myself to accept what's going on
Hmm.
and allow myself to live in the spaces, even though I might still be in pain, even though I might still be struggling.
Hmm.
It's kind of learning to find that balance. And look, it doesn't happen overnight, nor is it a permanent solution, nor is it like a quick fix. But what it is that it's almost choosing to give yourself the space in your brain to go, okay, I know this is going on. It's not going to go anywhere if I stop thinking about it. I know it
Hmm.
hurts, but the more I can allow myself the space to do these things, whether it's spending time with family or friends or something, if you can do this, something as simple as walking the dog outside, for example, it's if you can allow yourself to do those small things,
Hmm.
hopefully one day with the bigger things, because the end goal will always take care of itself. In
Hmm.
terms of injuries, especially the acute injuries, it will always take care of itself. Whatever that looks like, it might be success getting back on the field, or it might just be pain free. It will look
Hmm.
after itself. It's
Hmm.
what we do in between that's actually the issue.
Yeah.
And it's actually that's where the key thing in terms of how do we manage the pain? What
Yeah.
steps can we take to help protect ourselves, our mental health? Because I mean, I used to be the person that go, physical health leads into mental health every day of the week.
Hmm.
And I think I've gone through this journey. Now, I'm not going to say one's more important than the other. I just think we can't
Hmm.
separate them. I think they are
Hmm.
fundamentally intertwined. Like
Hmm.
I don't really understand how we can differentiate them because
Hmm.
physical health gives us the reassurance in our head that mental
Hmm.
health that we're safe and secure. But in
Hmm.
that same breath, if we lose our physical health, that's when the panic starts. But then
Hmm.
on the other side of things, if we're worrying and anxiety comes in, it's not going to matter what's going on in our physical health because our brain's going 100 miles an hour, and it's amazing how much they facilitate one another. So,
Yeah,
kind of looping it back
definitely.
to your initial question, but I think it's genuinely that being seen and being recognized, that your
Hmm.
pain is just validated. It doesn't have to be people don't have to take it away. It doesn't have to go anywhere,
Hmm.
but just for certain people to know that that is what you are going through and to feel seen and feel heard
Hmm.
genuinely makes the world of difference.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's good. Big way to manage it. Cool. Let's have a look. Just making sure we haven't missed anything that I wanted to chat through. Suppose, we've covered a lot about the rebuild community, which is great. I suppose, going back to you and your story a little bit, what is the biggest aims for you? Whether it's, I know obviously a big part of your time is taken up by rebuild. So out of that, what's everything looking like in terms of what
Mm.
you want to achieve? I know that you said obviously about the upcoming surgery. So how does that look for you, and what you're hoping to achieve?
Mm.
Even 6 months down the line, a year down the line. So what's that look like for you?
No, thank you for asking that. I think that's such a good question. And I genuinely think the honest answer is I don't know. But I
Mhm.
don't mean that, and weirdly enough, I don't mean that negatively. And I'll explain
Mhm.
why. So the easy goal could be, I'll go back to rugby. As we kind of
Mhm.
mentioned before, the easy goal would
Mhm.
be figure out the nerve pain, get the lift strength done, straight back on the rugby field, do that kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
But I think I'm learning, well, I've learned already, but if I didn't already know, I'm learning now that that's not possible for me. For someone
Mhm.
else with a Lisfranc fracture, could be in a ridiculously similar scenario to me.
Mhm.
It might work for them, but for me, I'm now making the choice for myself, for my mental health, for my physical health, for everything that the rugby now isn't the solution for me and isn't something I'm going to go down. I'm incredibly grateful for everything it's done for me,
Mhm.
but it's not a door I'm willing to open again. And again, it
Yeah.
comes to that idea that I'm not losing the rugby. It's just
Mhm.
not something that I'm interested in pursuing at the moment. Who
Hmm.
knows? Maybe it'll change one day.
Hmm.
But I think I've wondered a lot actually about what success looks like to me now. Because as I mentioned earlier, you really do get stripped back to your bare bones almost, to like this fundamental. And I think my genuine answer for success right now is genuinely just living pain free. I genuinely
Hmm.
think that is the goal. The goal would be to, if someone asked me, do I want to go for a walk on a path or of the Malvern Hills around here, or
Hmm.
the Lake District up near you, like
Yeah.
if I like to think success for me is knowing that if someone were to ask me a question like that, I can go yes, and I
Hmm.
won't be in pain, and I won't be
Yeah.
in pain. I won't be worrying about my injury. And I had this
Yeah.
image that, I'm a massive Lord of the Rings fan. I'm a massive, TV nerd kind of thing, that kind of stuff. And genuinely, the idea came up as I was watching Lord of the Rings, and obviously it's filmed in New Zealand,
Mm.
and I really want to travel. And I have this image in my head of kind of being on this beach in New Zealand and just not being in pain. And for me, that is legitimately what success looks like now. And I know if you asked that for me that 12 months ago, it would have been, oh, I'd have to have X amount of caps for the Melbourne Rugby Club. I'd have to have X amount
Yeah.
of caps for Sandy Bay RFC in Hong Kong, and then be pushing for
Mm.
things from there. But for now, it's genuinely as simple as living pain free.
Mm.
And I was about to say being happy, but for me at the moment, being happy genuinely is completely intertwined with not being in pain. And it sounds so
Mm.
simple. And it's
Mm.
just like, knowing that if people ask me the questions, would you like to come play a gentle game of tennis? Do you want to
Mm.
come play table tennis? Do you want to come for a walk with us? I can go,
Mm.
yes.
Mm.
And it won't be a case of, oh, how much pain can I tolerate? Can I wear that shoe today, despite how much pain I'm going to be in?
Yeah.
Um, is my list frank going to go?
Mm.
And look, I wish I could attach it to tangible outcomes. And look, I'd love
Hmm.
one day to run a marathon, for Rebid and for other like foundations, like Doddy Weir Foundation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to run half marathons, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that. And
Yeah.
I'm starting to accept that that might be the case. And I'm hoping that the more I can focus success on that, almost metaphysical, whatever word you want to use, image of being on the beach and being pain free, that if an opportunity ever came to run a park 5K or walk a 5K or walk a 10K, that I take it. And then then everything from then's a bonus. So it's like
Yeah.
really stripping it down. Okay,
Yeah.
how do I want to live my life? Not in pain, being happy about people, happy and people around me that I trust and love. And okay, well, that's what we're going to do. And then
Yeah.
everything from there is a bonus.
Nice, mate. Yeah. Really cool. Really cool. Similar for me too. I
Mm.
mean, it's a horrible place to be in when you're suffering with pain and injuries long term. So, I guess you know, uh, there's probably not much I want to cover. I think we've covered a lot there. Unless there's anything that you want to, any thoughts that you want to put out there, or if there's anything else that you want to chat through,
Mm.
we're happy to talk through. But do you have anything else that you want to mention? I mean,
No, I
even
think.
even mention about the community. I know it's doing so well on socials. Is it predominantly just Instagram you're sharing your stuff on, or have you got any other platforms
Oh,
that you do
thank
it on?
you. No, it's just, so no, thanks. In terms of further thoughts, not really, to be honest. I'm honestly,
Mhm.
I genuinely think we covered everything. I think we genuinely went back and forth. I think, but it's amazing, it's amazing how much one leads to the other. It's because with
Mm.
injuries, it's what I found is that we might be talking about the isolation over here, and that leads
Mhm.
directly into the sense of acceptance and the identity, and that leads
Mhm.
into not playing rugby,
Mhm.
and it's this whole being, and that comes back to this idea that there's not a one size fits all. There's not a
Yeah,
single solution that will solve all of my problems right now, but what works for me won't work for you, and what works for you won't work for me, and vice
for
versa, and all
sure.
these kind of things. So
Yeah.
I really think that no, I love the way we covered everything. I think it's so great to have these kind of honest discussions about these things. And in terms of the community, yes, I'm on Instagram at the moment, and I think that, and I genuinely don't mean this in a selfish or an arrogant way. I think the reason it's working is because I'm just quite honest. And you mentioned it earlier, is I genuinely
Mhm.
think the reason it's working is that I'm not afraid to say it how it is and just say, yeah, I am struggling, or
Yeah.
yeah, I'm having another surgery. I don't really want to have another one, but I'm here.
Mm.
And I think that
Mm.
that's what I'm kind of so proud of with all of this stuff. And I think that I'm hoping to the moving forward with Rebuild is that I don't I don't need the page to have hundreds and thousands of people. I don't need the page to have tens of thousands of people. I don't really
Yeah.
care how many people are in it. It's
Yeah.
more that I know that the people who are in this bubble,
Mhm.
that they know that they're in a place where they can have these honest conversations with people, and they can
Mhm.
have that to know that finding it hard isn't a weakness, and
Mhm.
finding it hard isn't some failure, isn't some, like, they're not wrong for finding it hard, and they're not wrong for finding it feeling dismissed on social media and really like, put down by the influencers who are saying this is easy. Look at me, I'm cycling again. And you're like, well, for me, I had let's say I don't know, yourself or your knee. Like I've hurt my
Hmm.
knee. I can't even shower by myself, and I'm seeing these people who've hurt their knees on social media and are cycling 100K the next day. This is not how this works.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I made on Instagram, and then I have a little website I made. This again just kind of says a bit more about Rebuild, and yeah, so that's kind of where it
Nice.
started and where it's at the moment.
That's cool. Really, really exciting. I hope that, continues progressing the way it is. I'm sure it will. As more people join and have the same honest conversations, I think it's very much needed in today's social media world and online space. So, again, thanks for coming on. And again, it'd be good to maybe do this in person sometime and see
100%, mate.
see
Yeah.
where you're at in the next few months to a year, etc. So that'd be really, really cool too.
No, thank you so much for having me. Genuinely, I think what's been so nice for me is that knowing that you get it. Like I haven't
Mm.
had to explain anything.
Hmm.
Like I could see as I was talking about these things, you're like, yeah, I get it. And it,
Hmm.
and it, and it, even though we have completely different injuries and different at different times in our life and what and all these different things, different support networks, different surgeons, and it's like,
Yeah.
but the themes are the same. The themes that
Yeah.
ultimately remain the same. So
Yeah.
no, I really appreciate it, man. Yeah, love what you're doing as well. And absolutely, I will venture up north. To the heart of England soon.
Cool. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you soon. Bye.